What's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here with the Nebula Music Podcast, and today I'm excited to speak with Elise Trouw. Now, if you haven't heard of Elise Trouw, then you've definitely been living under a rock. She's a drummer on Instagram who's basically taken the whole drumming community by storm. And with over 200,000 followers, she's definitely on her way to becoming a superstar. I mean, 200,000 followers. Can you even begin to imagine how that must feel like? So I had to sit down with her and I had to figure out her process to social media, to the music industry, and just her career in general. She's young and incredibly talented and full of inspirational advice. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, guys, I'm really excited because today I have none other than Elise Trouw here with me. Elise, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm excited because you get to join me on an awesome conversation. And guys, if you guys don't know who Elise is, I mean, just open your Instagram feed and just type in drums. And I guarantee you she'll be the first choice that comes up because you do some amazing videos and you're just a fantastic drummer when it comes down to it. So, but you know what? I can spend a long time talking about you. So I don't even want to do that. I'm just going to let you do the talking. So why don't you catch us up? Tell us what you've been up to. How are you? And what's new for your career right now?
So I've been working a ton on my live show as a solo artist. I recently came out with my album Unraveling.
Nice.
That came out in February, March. And so I've been working on getting my live show together and promoting that album. On the album, I played drums, but I also sang and played all the other instruments as well.
Right.
And so that was kind of a fun, learning process for me, recording all the parts. And so yeah, I've been working on some new material and continuing posting online, but a lot of my focus has been on writing and my live show right now.
Very cool. For this album, Unraveling, is this your first album or is this, have you done another album before?
My very first album.
Wow. How was that experience? I mean, I know it's a bit of a broad question, but, you know, recording an EP or recording an album, it's a very hard thing to do. So I'm curious how your first one was.
It was interesting, yeah, because I guess before I made the album, I kind of thought of myself as a drummer. And then I was like, okay, I'm making an album now, and I hadn't really had any experience singing or performing, and performing singing. I perform drums all the time, but so I kind of thought of myself like I'm a drummer. But going into it, I learned so much about singing, about songwriting and recording. So it was kind of a very, very much a learning process for me. And I think it went pretty well. And now I know what I would do differently, which I guess is the point of anything, right?
Exactly. You learn from the mistakes. So what would you do differently? I mean, again, making an album is not an easy thing. Anyone who's ever tried to even write a song understands how hard it is to make something like that. So putting it all on, record, it's definitely difficult. So what did you think it was going to be like and what would you change?
I thought it would probably be... I thought it would be easier to get all the parts really tight, even though I was playing each track one at a time to a click track. So that I think was one of my major difficulties, as well as singing. Since I was so new to singing, I listened to the first track that I recorded and I listened to the last one, and you can just hear a major improvement, or at least I can between the two. I don't know if it's obvious to other people, but just the being comfortable in the recording studio as a singer is something that I didn't really anticipate. I didn't anticipate how uncomfortable it would be at times.
I'm actually kind of curious. So when it comes to actually, and I'm asking this just because, I'm sure there's some people out there that have never recorded an album. How long does it take, or at least in your experience, how long did it take to record each part? When it comes to the drums, when it comes to recording your vocals, maybe even the bass or guitar parts. And obviously maybe you don't remember the exact amount of time, but ballpark, how long did each part take if you remember?
It would totally vary. So most of the drum parts I would kind of just nail out, and then I would layer on top of that. So the drum part would be a couple takes, and then I choose one. I'm like, okay, I'm going with this one. So that'd be less than a day. But then guitar parts, a lot of the time I was also arranging as I was recording. So I had demos of most of the songs done, but as you're recording, you're oh, now I hear this part, now I hear this part. And some of the time, since playing guitar is not my strong suit, I'd have an idea and then it wouldn't my ideas was beyond my idea was beyond my like capabilities, and so I would have to like go home and practice it a little bit, come back in, like nail it. And so I guess that would kind of change, like the how proficient I am on each instrument really dictated how long it would take to get the part where I wanted it to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Was it intimidating working with some producers, maybe them behind the recording console, maybe telling you, maybe don't play this, maybe play that, maybe play faster, quieter, them giving you comments? Was that intimidating at all?
Not at all. I really appreciate honest feedback from people, because I think there's nothing like more harmful. Actually, I'm going to quote Whiplash right now, that movie.
Oh, go for it. I love that movie. I love that movie.
It's like no word is more harmful than good, or something like that. That's not the exact quote, obviously, but I think when people just say like, oh yeah, that's good, it's like, I like when people, push me. So whoever I was working with, I always like to take criticism and improve.
They're just like, you know what, that was adequate. It was just adequate. That's at least what I take when someone says it was good. I love Whiplash, by the way. That's a fantastic movie. I've seen it like 10 times and I'm absolutely in love with it. But definitely that album experience, it sounds fantastic. And honestly, I'm really happy because it sounds really good, especially your Unraveling song. I really love it. Absolutely love it. And the music video for that song, I mean, that's the one with the lights, right? There was like flashing red lights and stuff on the floor. I remember that. Tell me a little bit about the music video process, just because I know recording an album, making a music video, some of this like Hollywood stuff can be very new to a lot of people, and they have a vision of how it's like, but sometimes it's very different. And I've been on a lot of sets before, and it always blows me away how different it is. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience filming that music video? And the same with the first one too, because you had two music videos. You had Burn, and then you had Unraveling, right?
Right. I also filmed a third one. It's not released yet, but it's for my song Awake.
Nice.
And I'd say like all three of those were very, very different shoots. Because I'll start with Burn, just since it was the first one. They kind of, like, the production company that I worked with sent me the ideas for it. They sent me like 3 different ideas, and I'm like, oh, I like that one a lot. So we built on that, and then that was shot in 2 days. It was very cold.
Really?
It was all outside. Yeah. So like the entire shoots, it was 2 like full days, like 6 to 8 or so.
Wow.
And because like the shots that you see of the car driving and stuff, that's all shot early in the morning.
Wow. It looks super sunny too. So it's funny that it was really cold. You have the glare in the camera and everything. It looks sunny.
Right. It was the middle of winter in South Africa, which like isn't that cold, but it gets pretty cold like on top of the mountain and on the beach. So I'm wearing shorts and like summer clothing, but it was freezing. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, we were like, there was really no home base, so we were kind of like jumping from location to location, trying to fit everything into 2 days. And we had like a makeup artist, hair. And at like each shoot, we'd have to like sit and like touch up or whatever, and like run to the next location. But the Unraveling video is like the complete opposite of that one in terms of the experience of it. So it was also shot in 2 days, but the first day was completely dedicated to setting up. So I just like showed up for 10 minutes the first day to like go over the clothing I was gonna wear. But otherwise, it was all shot in a studio. And they set up like all the lighting, they set up the props, all the like the couch and everything, and like they completely planned it out the first day, and then the second day was like another full day of shooting for me. But it was like all in one studio with the lights and with the different instruments and stuff. And when I brought that song to the production company, I was like, okay, this song I think would be cool to like reflect the way that the album was recorded, but like in the music video. So I wanted to like feature myself playing each of the instruments in the video, since like the first music video, I was just it was very story based.
Yeah.
And so my only request for the Unraveling video was to show me playing each instrument, to kind of like, if someone just like comes across that video, they'll kind of know what I'm all about just by watching that one video. And then like from there, the director kind of came up with the idea with the TV and with the different like kind of crops and stuff, like the imagery, the kind of having the TV scene next to the instruments and everything. And he like sent me that. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then we just kind of went for it. I don't know if this is all making sense, but
no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, obviously, I'm asking you to to summarize a large production in like one question. So it's fascinating to me, the creative process for filming, because it's a world that, at least for me as a musician, it's very foreign to me. You know, I didn't go to school for filming. I don't know the first thing about filming. You know, even like aperture, like that word. I mean, I know what it means now, but when I first started doing music, I didn't know. And so I ask because you're really big on social media. You know, even before your album came out, I think you were doing some really cool things on Instagram and on YouTube. And I think a lot of people, they're trying to start their own brand, if you will, especially as musicians. They're starting to see the potential of social media. And so going from filming from your house and then going to actually filming a large, you know, music video production, I imagine it's a huge leap. Like, it's a very different environment, right? Was there any pressure when you filmed this music video on yourself, maybe from an external force, but did you feel very nervous at all? Did you handle it pretty well?
I think the first time I was more nervous with Burn because it's the same production company, same crew. So the second time I was filming with them, I kind of, we were like friends, and we were like, it was more like a hang.
Nice.
More comfortable.
Those are the best. When you're just hanging out, having fun, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but I guess it's nice, like trusting, having people that you trust, because then it's if you're working with people that you like kind of don't trust, or like their bar isn't where you want it to be, then you'll have not as good of a time because you'll keep thinking like how you would do it differently. But in this case, like everyone that I was working with is so talented and like beyond my at home capabilities that like I completely put it in their hands and I trust them fully, you know? And so that makes it a very like enjoyable experience, because then I just kind of, I do my thing, they do their thing, and we come out with like a cool product at the end, you know?
Very cool. Did you learn any like cool filming tricks or anything new from the whole learning experience of doing a music video? Did you manage to talk to some of the camera people? I imagine you were super busy doing your own thing, but I'm curious if maybe you like saw over your shoulder and like, oh, look, they're holding this that way. Yeah,
actually, I had a lot of time to kind of like, there's actually a lot of like sitting around in these kinds of things, because they'll be like, oh, let's change this light a little bit. Let's do this. There's a lot of, I'm just kind of like sitting there like eating dried mango half the time. Or whatever, you know, and but I'd say actually one of the biggest things I learned from the music video is like, I think people don't sometimes understand how you have to like shoot every single action. It's like, okay, we're gonna shoot you opening the door. Okay, we're gonna have you walking up to the door, and then we're gonna have you putting your hand on the door, and then your foot walking into the door. And those are all different shots. It's not like you can just record. It's not like press play, someone goes in the door and it's done. Like there are 5 different angles within like a 5-second interval, you know, of the video. So it's just a lot of detail that you don't think about, but it really translates once the video is complete, you know.
Was there a specific motion that was super frustrating? Like you just described opening a door in basically 4 frames. Was there like a specific action that they were like, all right, we gotta break this down to 20 takes? You know, you lifting up the guitar, you putting on the strap, you then, you know what I'm saying? Was there a specific action that was just annoying or maybe frustrating?
I'd say for the Burn video, there were more actions like that, because in the Unraveling video, it was kind of like just play your part right and you're good to go, which actually got kind of difficult when the lights would flash, because then like I couldn't really see what I was playing on the guitar.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
And so I was just like hoping for the best, but it turned out okay.
How did you manage to keep your eyes open? Because you were staring dead at the camera, and then you just see these flashes that come out of nowhere.
Well, the flashes are all the light was on the ground, so it wasn't like directly in my eyes, and so it was that wasn't like a problem. But there was one part where like they had a light from behind me that would kind of flash, and it was just like completely dark except for that one light. So then it would be completely dark at times, and or like kind of like a strobe light effect.
Right.
And that would make it hard to like see what I'm doing. But
that's crazy though. I mean, the experience sounds unbelievable. It's an experience that I think most of us would want to have. Now, I'm curious. You said that you're working on a 3rd video, and I'm sure you don't want to talk too much about it until you release it, but I'm curious as to when it's going to be released, and maybe if you can give a little bit of details of what it's going to be about, maybe like a quick summary.
Yeah. So this one, I actually haven't seen the edit yet, but I filmed it when I was in South Africa. When I filmed the Unraveling video, 2 days after that. So like both of those were shot in the course of 4 days. 2 days like allotted for each, and it was the complete opposite. I like most of the shots are like in a bathtub, so I was actually sitting in that for like 6 hours getting different shots,
Oh
and so I got
man.
really pruny. But so it was like a completely different experience in the Unraveling video where I'm like banging on the drums, like playing guitar and like standing up all day, kind of like very active. So it was kind of nice.
I'm looking forward to that video. Well, I want to backtrack just a little bit, just to kind of get to know you a little bit better as to who you are as a musician. And you're incredibly talented for being 18. I'm curious as to how everything got started. Maybe when you started playing drums or when you picked up your first instrument. Give us a quick little rundown of where it all started.
I started on piano when I was 6, and I started playing drums when I was about 10 because of the game Rock Band. Yeah, I know.
Nice, nice.
But then, like, when I got into the real drums, I like never looked back. But I think when I started playing with other musicians was like when I really kind of grasped onto music, from like more of a musical perspective. Because when you're playing drums alone, it's very much like counting and I'm gonna play this beat, I'm gonna play this fill. Oh, this is cool. But then once you play with other people, you kind of like have that understanding of music as a whole. And that's what kind of drew me into it when I was around like 12 or 13. But yeah, I guess I started writing around that age as well, 12 or 13. And I when I was taking piano lessons, it was all classical. But then I started doing more like chords and jazzy stuff on when I was writing. And it kind of just like took me from there.
Very cool. It sounds very similar to a lot of our stories where basically it was just fun. You just wanted to do it because you enjoyed it, and then you improved as it went. And then from that point on, I think you got signed to a label, right, about maybe a year or two ago. How does it feel going from an independent artist to, being in a label?
I guess I was never really an independent artist before I signed that contract because I met the label as a drummer. Initially, and they're like, oh, maybe we can put a band together. But then the A&R guy's like, oh, she also sings and plays all these instruments. She should do like a solo album. And that's really what kind of led me to become an artist. And that was actually the reason I started my Instagram account, was so that I could have a fan base before I released my album.
Very cool. The process of opening the Instagram account so that you could have a fan base for when you actually released your music is actually pretty smart. And, when you first started posting on Instagram, I remember a couple videos from you that came out that I think I shared around a lot. Well, let me ask you this. When you first started filming, how did you do it? Did you just put up like a GoPro? Did you just like set up some microphones, or did you research it, or how did it go? Did you just put up your iPhone?
I guess it's evolved over time. Like, actually, the very first video I made was when I was 10, so I was only probably playing for a couple months. And I just set up a camcorder and, like, used the camcorder audio. You could definitely tell, but it was, like, I put it up on YouTube, like, 10-year-old girl playing drum beat or whatever, And, like, it got a surprisingly large number of views, like, kind of creepy comments, but those
Oh, don't even get me started on those. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
like I don't know, it gets weird when you're like younger for some reason, but as time went on, I learned more about recording, and the Hit Like a Girl contest I posted before the whole Instagram thing, that my 2015 entry. That's actually how I got introduced to the label, which I'm no longer with now. So I actually went from being a signed artist to being an indie artist. It's kind of like backwards, but
Oh, wow. Actually, not necessarily. There's some artists that do it that way, and it works just fine. Whatever's best for you.
But so I got an interface, and I got a little drum mic set, and kind of messed around with that a bit. Had a couple friends who like knew about recording help me out, and kind of just like messed around, and like figured out how to record decent sounding drums. And just like over time, that's kind of progressed.
Nice. How do you get again, this might be a very broad question, but is there any specific tips you have in order to get a really good drum sound? Just because I think your drums sound pretty good on your videos, and I think there's a lot of people that record live drums that are trying to find a good mix. I'm just curious, are you using default plugins? You said you messed around, but I'm curious as to maybe there's like a secret that you discovered, like maybe like put a lot of compression or not enough compression or something like that.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part I use default. I mean, I like honestly haven't explored recording that much. It's not really something that's interested me beyond recording myself. You know, like all my album, I didn't like mix all that, and I kind of just use mixing to kind of like the difference between an iPhone microphone and like
better audio.
Yeah, like I think the biggest like jump up you can make is just between having your like the audios or the video's audio as opposed to like having the microphone going into like a Logic or GarageBand or whatever you want to use. Right.
Are you using Logic?
Yeah, I use Logic.
Nice. So no Pro Tools for you? Not yet?
I've like worked on it in other studios. I'm like more comfortable on Logic, and I've been doing some more Ableton stuff now, obviously for the live show.
Nice. I want to talk a little bit about your daily schedule, just because being an artist can be very rigorous. You have a lot to do. And I'm curious what your daily schedule looks like. Do you have a full-time school schedule? Maybe not. I'm curious.
I'd say like there's no daily schedule. It's very, it's kind of like I do everything on Google Calendar, and I'll have different things planned, like, oh, I'm going to be recording with this person from 3 to 6. And then if I have free time, like that's just allotted to doing like emails, and it's kind of like you have like main things going on and then like kind of a backlog of, I'm not that organized, but you know, that
you go with the flow. You go with the flow.
Yeah. I kind of just have like a backlog of things, like a to-do list or whatever. And if I have time where it's like nothing's scheduled, I just kind of go to my to-do list and I'm like, okay, I have to email this person back. I have to, you know, like update my website, send out an email, I'll post a picture, make a video, all sorts of, there's like a million different things to do, you know.
Well, as an artist, I can imagine there's a lot of stuff to do. So as an independent artist now, do you basically handle all of your stuff online when it comes to your website, your Instagram, your YouTube, all that? Is that all you?
Yeah, like honestly, even when I was with the label I signed with was a very, very small independent label in San Diego, and they never ran any of my socials. So like everything that I've done on Instagram I did independently.
Nice.
And on YouTube, they were mostly for the recording, and like beyond that, it was all me. And that's one of the reasons I left the label before I released the album. So like now I released the album independently. I own all my masters and everything. I'm completely separated from the label now. But I think like it taught me that you don't need to rely on other people to like get where you want to go, because even when I was like working with them, I was doing what what I was doing there I could have been doing on my own, but like signing with them kind of gave me that encouragement to pursue this. I think if I didn't meet the A&R guy there, I would have continued like high school and being like a drummer and not really pursuing being an artist. So it led me to that, but then I realized you don't need that to be inspired to do that.
Right.
To be an artist. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And I'm glad you bring that up, just because maybe even like 20 years ago, even in the 90s, you know, when we were both young kids, it was very hard to make a living being an artist. You know, it's just a fact. I mean, it still is true to this day. Being an artist, making music, making art, it's not easy. You know, the process was you get signed, you go on a tour, maybe get famous, maybe not, but you somehow find a way to make a living. That was it. That was basically the way you did it. But now with the internet and social media and just a little bit of hustle and a little bit of know-how, you can make your own career for you. And I think it's important for you and important for other artists to really recognize their own potential. You don't need to be the smartest, the fastest, the most powerful to actually get ahead. You're basically doing it all on your own at this point, and it shows that you know what you're doing. And I don't think you went to marketing school right? I don't think you went to,
No.
studied SEO and whatever all the terminology is for, marketing your Instagram. You just basically posted what you liked. And since I'm on that point, I'm curious, when you post something, do you put a lot of thought into what you're about to post? Let's say on Instagram, maybe today you just felt like recording a video and you're just like, oh, this sounds good, I'm going to post it. Or do you plan that maybe a couple days before?
Almost everything I do is planned. I guess like what I'll do is I'll be like, I'm going to record a video today, and then I go in there and I'll be like, what do I feel like doing? And then I'll decide on that day what I want to do. But I think I kind of like to commit a whole day to recording a video, or like I'll record a couple of videos in one day, because like setting it up, getting my hair and face looking nice or whatever, like it's like I want to like make it all complete. And so I think like with like photos and videos, I put a lot of thought into it, because I think being a musician, you have to like be aware of what your audience wants, because I see a lot of musicians make the mistake of mixing too much of their personal life in with their musical side, where like if you're like Taylor Swift, sure, you can post about your cats because everyone already knows who you are and they want to see that side of you. But if nobody knows who you are, you have to show them who you are. And just posting your personal life, I think, confuses people. So I think a lot of thought has to go into what like you're trying to convey to the world.
Interesting. You're basically thinking of it as a brand. You're selling yourself in terms of, this is who I am, this is what I can do, like what I do. And I think you bring up a very good point, is that, well, let me say this. Everyone that I've interviewed, everyone that I've met, and all the friends, including you, that I've met on Instagram and YouTube, everyone has their own method of doing what it is that they do. They all have a different way of achieving their goals. And I think your way is probably one of the best ways that I've heard so far. And it shows, because you have a pretty big following. And I think your account and your music, it speaks for itself. It just speaks professional. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between you seeing something online being like, oh, that's clearly professional, and then seeing something else and you getting the impression that they're trying to be professional. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important to be clear as to what you want to achieve, and then do that. It's okay if you don't necessarily want to be professional. You don't have to, and not everybody has the resources to be professional, right? But if that's what you want to be, then mold yourself to be that. And I think you definitely hit it right on the mark with showing what you need, as a brand, as an artist, as what you want people to know about you. Make sure that it's planned, but that it looks good. And I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about more of your personality. What do you think are your characteristics that help you to succeed? It's not easy being an artist. I know we both established that in this conversation, and it can get tiring at times. So I'm curious as to how you keep motivated and what characteristics you have that help you achieve all your goals.
That's a good question. I guess there's a certain amount of like curiosity you need, where like I'd say if I feel like I like to do a lot of different things. So I do like videos, I do drums, I sing, I songwrite, I'll take pictures or whatever. So like if I feel like I'm in a rut in one place, I can always go to another creative outlet and kind of get inspired there and go back to something else and like have a new perspective.
Nice.
And so I think having that like different perspectives of art really helps. And there's like a certain amount of, I think, just like drive and seeing, like thinking outside of the box. That's a very cliche way of saying it, but
it's true. It's cliche because it's true.
Yeah, and you need to be able to like look at what is like missing and what you like need to do, and different ways of approaching things that are like thinking of ways that things haven't been done.
Right.
It's kind of it's very vague, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying.
No, but, I mean, I don't think any of us really know what we're saying.
yeah. But I guess, I think just like being curious and being like persistent and kind of always being like conscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And because sometimes I'll find I'm doing like so many day-to-day things it's like, oh, what is the main goal here again? So like having a goal, I like to think of like one goal at a time. So like right now, my main thing is I'm gonna get my live show together, and I'm gonna like book as many shows as I can and go on a tour.
Nice.
So like that's my main. So like I'll have different things scheduled. I'll have day-to-day things to do, but in any other free time, I'm working on that. So like I'm never questioning what I have to do next because I know what my end goal is. And so kind of having that like clarity and is important too. I guess, yeah, I don't know if this is answering the personality question, but
No. Actually, you know what? I think it answers it perfectly, primarily because I definitely have suffered from what you're describing in the past. You know, when you're, and let me just say this, I think it's very impressive that you have this, you know, this drive and this motivation and this clear goal. For me, you know, part of my background is I'm a bit of an entrepreneur, and I do a lot of things here in Los Angeles. And one of the big dangers of doing a lot of stuff is that it's easy to get caught up with all the small steps, you know, especially if you can't achieve everything all at once. There's so many people that just get so discouraged when they cannot achieve, you know, part A or part B or whatever it is. But what you said is incredibly important. And I think it speaks to focus and persistence. Exactly what you said. You know exactly where you're going to get. It's almost like a quick little metaphor. It's almost like trying to climb a mountain. You know, like you want to be at the top. That's clearly the goal where you want to be. But there's a whole bunch of little things in between. Like you got to take this hiking trail, then maybe hike that cliff, and then maybe, I don't know, take a helicopter ride to this part. That's the concept that I think is important as an artist, is focus, is just understanding what the big picture is and then being able to break it down to step by step by step. And I think you're doing that perfectly. And right now your step seems to be, like you said, your live show, which I think is absolutely important for any artist, is making sure that they're really good to watch live. I think we were talking about that a little bit before, how you're working on, you're basically going to be a solo artist, but you're trying to program everything so it could sound really full on stage. Am I correct?
Right.
How is that process coming along for you right now? I know you're trying to figure it out. How difficult is it? Are you looking into specific things right now? Just walk us through a little bit.
I'm definitely in the early stages, but like as of right now, it's been where I took all the tracks out of my like Pro Tool sessions for my songs, and I'm kind of like figuring out how that conveys live. It's like, do I need this extra little background vocal? Do I need this, kind of breaking it down to its roots? And also, it's like some of the songs, like one of them, I'm not even going to use any of the tracks from the recording. I'm just completely reimagining it for the live show, because
nice.
With like having tracks, I think there's kind of an electronic element that needs to happen. So in some of my songs, I think they need to be a little bit like, I kind of think of it as like Radiohead-ified or something, you know, kind of like bring that electronic element to the acoustic instruments, you know? Right. And so it's been, I've been doing everything in Ableton, like to get more specific. And I don't know if you work with Ableton much, but like I put each section of the song in a different scene. So I'll have like my verse and then my chorus, my next verse. And so each scene I'll just like click to the next one, and then I can like loop this part if I want to jam over it for a little bit. So I have like a certain amount of control over how I want to play the song, instead of just, it's going to go all the way through the song and there's no stopping it.
Right.
You know?
Rather than just pressing play and then having it play for 3.5 minutes, you basically have control over each part. And I think that's actually even cooler. It actually even allows you to be more creative live on stage. And to answer your question, no, I actually haven't used Ableton very much myself. I primarily just use tracks on a Roland sample pad. I have all the tracks in there. Most of the artists that I play with, they use just long tracks, and I just press play. We have a click, and I have all these bunch of sounds that I use, and then that's how it's done, at least for my part. But I think your way is probably even better. It allows you to be more creative, and I actually want to go get Ableton and just try and figure it out myself. But yeah, I'm excited to see your show. For those of you guys who do not know, Elise is actually playing a show with yours truly. We're actually going to be part of the same show. I'm playing with Jake Davis. I'm playing drums with them. And you're doing a solo act, which is going to be unbelievable from what I am gathering from our conversation. And I can't wait to see it. I think it's in
August 19th.
August 19th. See, you know more than I do. I got to get more on it because you know the date right at the top of your head. So August 19th, if you guys are around in LA, we're going to be playing the Terragram. And it's going to be a fantastic show, trust me, especially because you don't want to miss Elise. Elise is a fantastic drummer, fantastic musician, and just unbelievable. And I can go on and on and on and on about it. But what inspires you other than musicians? Is there anything else that you look into? It could be anything. It could be books, could be movies, could be a show, some, I don't know, documentaries. Is there anything else that you kind of look into for inspiration? I know you said you have other creative outlets, but I'm curious as to more like content. Like, do you read stuff? Do you watch things to keep you inspired?
Yeah, I watch a couple shows. This is going to sound stupid probably, but I've been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, there you go.
Like, I loved that show when I was a child. And so like I saw a clip from it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should go watch that. So I've been watching it, and like I kind of realized like when you're older, you kind of gather different things from the same show that you saw as a child. Because like when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, that's pretty. I love her dress. But now it's like, oh, that's actually a good life lesson, you know? And like I actually like learn a decent amount from that show, you know, about like balance and I don't know, all sorts of things. Like that show is like funny, and it's a good show. But I'd say other than music, like, yeah, a couple TV shows. I prefer movies in general because it's like less commitment than TV shows, which can kind of go on forever and you kind of get like sucked into.
Or they get canceled and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, that's the worst. But
what are some of the movies that you're into, if I can ask?
I love the movie Gattaca. That's one of my favorite movies.
Interesting. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. That's Ben Affleck, right? Is it?
The lead?
Yeah.
Is Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, yeah, I'm sorry,
and
yeah.
Jude Law.
Yeah.
And that movie, I love the soundtrack, and like the visuals are very, I like it because it's like a sci-fi movie that doesn't rely on it being sci-fi to carry the story, you know, like the sci-fi part of it is kind of like, it's just to convey the message, you know, it's not like, you know, like an action sci-fi. But nothing wrong with that either. I love action sci-fis,
right.
But I think it has a really deep message, and just like the whole movie itself complements that really well. And it's just like a very complete piece of art to me. I think also like back to the music videos, like how those were made kind of also inspired me because you kind of can see the process of a different art piece and kind of like relate it to how music is made. And so you can get a new perspective on making music by seeing how other art is created. And so just like the creative process, I guess, yeah, I love watching other people create art because I think that inspires me in my music. And so like aside from just seeing the finished art piece, seeing how it's made is really interesting to me.
Very cool. And I think it's very important for everyone, not just musicians, but anyone who's creative, who's making stuff. You learn a lot by watching other people do things that you're not necessarily familiar with. I know I do. I know I love watching painters. I love dancing, believe it or not. Like, I'm not a very good dancer, but I love watching dancing videos. I love analyzing, you know, their body movements just because it's almost like drumming with your body in a weird way, you know, but the concept is you get inspired by just watching things that you've never really experienced yourself because it's new, you know, it's new to you. And I think it's important. So thank you for sharing that. And so to end it off, is there anything new that's coming up for you in terms of your projects? I know you have that music video coming up. You're working on your shows. But other than working on your live performance, is there anything else that's on your plate?
I've been writing a whole bunch. I don't have like a clear second album at all, but I've been kind of in like a writing phase lately. And so I have that alongside with the show that's coming up, and I'll probably be doing like a little tour around the U.S. at some point this year.
Where are you planning on going? Just the major cities?
Yeah, I definitely like Texas, Colorado area. There's been some planning there, but it's very, very open-ended right now.
Very cool. Well, is there anything else that you might want to leave the listeners with, something inspirational, maybe like a quick quote or just something that you want to leave them with so that they can pursue and maybe get inspired and just kind of get out there and do what they want to do?
That's a lot of pressure. I don't know.
I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that. Yes, it is a lot of pressure. You better say something inspirational right now.
Yeah. I guess if I had to say something inspirational to anybody that's like, that is like feels like they're in a rut, just do something outside of what you're working on, you know, to inspire you. So it's like if you're stuck on a song, go like bake a cake or something. Like just do something else that's creative, but and then come back to it, and you might have a new perspective. I don't know.
No, that's perfect. Honestly, it's very important for anyone who's creative, and if you're listening to this, and you're trying to create something new or music or whatever it is, it's very important to breathe creatively. I think there's this comic book called The Oatmeal, and they did this little comic book strip, which I think it's genius. And it talks about the creator and how he breathes creatively and how he thinks about creativity as breathing. And he makes the analogy as if you were only breathing, if you didn't exhale, you'd die. Your lungs would just explode with so much air. And that's the balance of life. You kind of breathe in and then you breathe out. And it's the same for creativity. It's the same for anything that, you have passion for. There's a lot of time to, go at it and work at it. But you also need the same amount of time to not necessarily relax, but to kind of relieve that.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's where you clear your head and you get new ideas and you're able to kind of pursue the next step. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good what you brought up. And I'm definitely going to go bake a cake right now because of what you said. I'm inspired. But Elise, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I know you have a very busy schedule and you're doing a lot of cool stuff. I can't wait to play that show with you. And honestly, I'm expecting to see great things from you. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was fun.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Elise. But most importantly, I hope you feel inspired. That's my main goal with these conversations. I want to make sure that after listening to these, you feel inspired to get up and try something new. As I mentioned in the conversation, I know it can be hard to envision your metaphorical mountain, the goal of where you want to be at. And it's hard to get there. That's something I can definitely agree on. But the truth is, just wishing you can be there, just looking at it and not doing anything about it, it's just not going to get you there. So after listening to this, get up and try something new. Figure out what the steps are to your goal and try one thing, just one thing. And you'll see you can achieve the same success that Elise has had, if not more, in the same amount of time, maybe shorter time, maybe even longer, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're trying to achieve a step every day, you're going to get there. So don't stop tuning in. I've got lots of great content coming your way.